Hey, this is Zach Log the Great, and I am here tonight with Travis.
Hello.
And we are joined for the first time tonight also by my friend Elaina.
Hello.
And we are getting together tonight to talk about G.K. Chesterton's poem, A Ballade of Suicide. As usual, if you like my work, if you like what I do, please consider supporting me via subscribestar.com/zachlog-the-great. And if you see this on YouTube, you can also subscribe to me on BitChute, or vice versa. If you see this on BitChute, you can also subscribe to me on YouTube. Having said that, Elaina has volunteered to read the poem. So I'm going to put that up on the screen in just a moment. And we will get rolling. And let me know when you guys can see that.
Yep, it's there.
Okay. When you're ready.
All right. A Ballade of Suicide. The gallows in my garden, people say, is new and neat and adequately tall. I tie the noose on in a knowing way, as one that knots his necktie for a ball. But just as all the neighbors on the wall are drawing a long breath to shout, "Hooray!" the strangest whim has seized me. After all, I think I will not hang myself today. Tomorrow is the time I get my pay. My uncle's sword is hanging in the hall. I see a little cloud all pink and gray. Perhaps the rector's mother will not call. I fancy that I heard from Mr. Gall that mushrooms could be cooked another way. I never read the works of Juvenal. I think I will not hang myself today. The world will have another washing day. The decadents decay, the pedants pall. The H.G. Wells has found that children play, and Bernard Shaw discovered that they squall. Rationalists are growing rational, and through thick woods one finds a stream astray, so secret that the very sky seems small. I think I will not hang myself today. Prince, I can hear the trumpet of Germinal, the tumbrils toiling up the terrible way. Even today your royal head may fall. I think I will not hang myself today.
Okay. Thank you, Elaina. I wanted to say just a couple of things about the poem and about the form before I'll see if I'll let Travis go after that. But a ballade is a poetic form. I believe it comes from French. It comes from French, and then it was borrowed into English. And it has the rhyme scheme. It uses the same two rhymes the entire way throughout, which is actually kind of difficult for English, because English is relatively rhyme poor. Most Romance languages, it's easier to find rhymes. And the last stanza traditionally has an address to a prince. So that is the form that Chesterton was working with here. And as the title goes, this is a ballade of suicide. So, having said that, Travis, would you like to get us started?
Sure. I'm not exactly sure what to start with, except that it's kind of fun in the way it's, dancing around this heavy subject, but he gives it kind of a light tone. Yeah. I don't know. You may have to pick it up from there.
You don't really have a very good lead in on this one?
No, not really.
Okay. Elaina, would you like to, or shall I?
No, I can. I was actually I don't know. I was very floored when I got this poem from you. I kind of on a personal note, not too personal, I hope, but in my job, I represent people who are in kind of desperate circumstances. And sometimes I have to give them bad news. And I've had a few times where people have really kind of, well, I'll just go kill myself then when they get like bad news from me. And it's I never really thought it serious, like when they say things like that, but they are in, desperate circumstances sometimes, like I said, and sometimes mentally ill even. And so it always kind of shakes me when I do hear that. And so that had actually happened that day, like when I had gotten this poem from you, and it was something like that. Like I told this guy some bad news and he was like, well, how about I just go commit suicide? And I never want to like really take that lightly, but at the same time, I know he's just kind of venting off steam because he's upset. But I don't know, like when I got the poem and I read it, it kind of made me feel a little better, like, because it's a kind of a light take on a really kind of heavy thing, but it helped me kind of see, I don't know, it was really timely that it's serious, but it's not always serious, I guess, in a way, in some context that I hear it anyway. So that was kind of the first thing that struck me. Like, I don't know. I guess I thought that the guy the speaker in the poem, he's he's not really that serious if he's distracted by the pink cloud, you know.
Well, the other thing, I think, I guess I'll just give you kind of my take on the poem and see what you guys think of it. It's and part of this comes from having read a fair bit of Chesterton outside of these poems, but it seems to me kind of like he's saying, like, and he has, and in his, I don't know a lot of his biography, but I know from things I've read peripherally that he did have some very dark periods. I think one of his most popular books came out at one of those times, The Man Who Was Thursday. But he, I think what he's saying here is kind of, if that is the temptation, if you are feeling pulled to that, and G.K. Chesterton was for much of his life Catholic and very affirming of the church doctrine, and he's saying, like, there are a million things that are still worth living for, even if that's what even if that's where you're being tempted. The tiniest thing, the tiniest bit of relief, like, let me see, where is that? Perhaps the rector's mother will not call. Like, maybe just the fact that perhaps this annoying, garrulous old woman who runs on and on about her grandchildren and these and the stories she follows, maybe she won't stop by today, and maybe just that is enough to say, you know what, I can keep going. Maybe I won't have to deal with her today. And so I kind of think, like, that's my main read of this poem, is that, like, it can be just the tiniest thing can be what can be worth living for.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be some big cause. It doesn't have to be some some devotion to some great duty. It can be just you look up in the sky at sunset and there's this cloud that is pink and gray, and there's this strange, surprising beauty about it. and just the fact that that bit of beauty is in the world, you know what, maybe you should stick around, because maybe there's something better tomorrow. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think there is that contrast. I mean, I love how I love the transition from, the strangest whim has seized me after all. I think I will not hang myself today. And, it's such a great line. And then he goes into, like you're saying, all of these little things that could make life bearable or pleasant. I mean, the second stanza is, it's almost about where you can find meaning in life, whether you're getting your pay tomorrow. I mean, I'm postulating on my uncle's sword is hanging in the hall. Like, this sounds like picking up someone's battle, like someone that you admires, like their sword is hanging there and there's a battle to be fought for something.
Well, and also not even necessarily just the battle, but like, say his uncle was, a soldier in this war, and it's like, there were the people who came before me, and there was their deeds and their honor, and you know what? The fact that they fought through all that they won those victories, maybe that's enough to not do it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And then something to me as trivial as cooking mushrooms a different way, because I don't really like to cook, but these are things that we find purpose in.
I do like to cook, so I can see that being oh, hey, there's this new recipe. I gotta try this sometime soon. Maybe my wife will like it. Maybe some of my friends will like it. And so, yeah. Well, and the other thing that really strikes me is like, okay, the first stanza, he's contemplating doing this. He has this whole thing set up, and his neighbors are watching and getting ready to cheer him on, and it's horrifying. And at the same time, like, it's kind of a thing about our society. We live in a there is a lot of nihilism. There is a lot of despair, and there are people who are fighting for the cause of assisted suicide, and there are all these things, and like there is a very real darkness surrounding us that can push us to that. So anyway, I'll stop for a second. Let one of you, Elaina.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. But it's like what I thought about that first stanza is like they're cheering him on, but he's doing it to himself. He's welcoming it. He knots his necktie for a ball. Like he's ready to go, and then all of a sudden, maybe not. But back to what you were saying earlier about just the little things that he can kind of cling to pull him out of this. I thought that was really great about the poem, and I love the second to last stanza where it says, "And through thick woods one finds a stream astray, so secret that the very sky seems small." So like this tiny little stream through these thick woods, it's just that little ray of hope is more powerful than the weight of the sky that's hanging on him and above him and surrounding him. Just that one little ray of hope. So I don't know. I think it's a light take, but it's also very profound, I think, in those ways.
Well, and also in that same stanza, the decadents decay, the pedants pall, and H.G. Wells has found that children play, and that's not it's not what we think of him today. Today we think of him as a science fiction writer, but he was the intelligentsia. He was the part of this elite that's this is how the future is going to go, and this is how society should develop, and really all of you people with your backward superstitions, we really don't need to listen to you anymore. And he says, like, these people, H.G. Wells and Bernard Shaw, oh, they take such pride in discovering, finally, revealing the truth to humanity about things that everyone knows. And it's just like, really, you just figured that out. Like, have you ever been around a family? Have you ever actually picked up your own kid, just living a healthy, normal life? You see these things. And again, you see this kind of thing with a lot of the same intelligentsia today. It's like it takes them forever to figure out things that ordinary Christians know just from living from the Bible and living their own lives. Travis?
So, can you enlighten me on Bernard Shaw? I mean, I know H.G. Wells, he wrote about the end of the world, and it was not pretty, so him finding it that children play would be the contrast. But why would Bernard Shaw discover that children squall? Do you know?
I don't know if there's a specific reference there. I don't know if there's a particular reason he assigned this one to this and this one to that, or if it just fit in the meter and the rhyme. But Bernard Shaw's was same thing. Atheist, kind of. I think he was an atheist, at least agnostic. Kind of cynical intellectual, and so in the same kind of mold like that I was just talking about. But I don't really have an idea about why H.G. Wells found that children play and Bernard Shaw discovered that they squall. But rationalists are growing rational.
It's George Bernard Shaw, right? Isn't that his full name, George Bernard Shaw? I can't think what he wrote or what he's known for.
Is it George Bernard
Pygmalion, maybe?
Shaw? Let's see.
I should have looked it up.
Irish playwright, critic, polemicist, and political. It's okay. Let's see.
He was sort of
known at his insistence simply as Bernard Shaw. That's what he preferred to be called, and he would be very angry at all of us today for using his first name. Best known works. Let's see. Works. What do we got? Full-length plays, Widowers' Houses.
He was kind of a comedian
and probably satirist, I think might be
I
the
think
most
that would
accurate
be the
term.
better word. Yeah.
But I don't I have to admit I haven't read a lot of. I'm sure I've read something. I'm sure I've read some at least short excerpts, but I haven't read a lot of his work, so I can't really say more than that. But yeah, just the line "rationalists are growing rational." That's so funny to me because like the people, like I was saying, the people who claim to be so much these rational, enlightened thinkers, and they and then they discover the most obvious things that we're like, well, yeah, you really just figured that out. So Elaina, did you have something?
Well, I don't know. I guess it seemed to me in mentioning those things, and I honestly don't know anything about either H.G. Wells or Bernard Shaw, But I mean, rationalists are growing rational, decadence, decay, and then the pedants or Paul. It seems
Pedants.
like pedants. Okay. So it seems like these are things maybe about the world that have discouraged him, some of the things going on in the world. And I can certainly relate to that, in the darkness that we have in society today. And sometimes, like, I just don't even want to watch the news because it's so kind of discouraging to
Well,
see
and
what's going on.
the other thing, and actually I can, borrow something from, G.K. Chesterton himself. I think he said something to this effect. I probably don't have it exactly. But, one thing that you have to keep in mind, and it is good to take a break from, the news, for a month or so every once in a while, because pretty much by definition, the news is the bad news. If everything's going right, no one talks about it. Like, okay, today, just let's talk about America. Probably a couple of thousand planes, took off and landed safely with no incident at all. And the news doesn't say a word about it. But if one plane crashes, everyone hears about it for a few days. And so, today, again, in America, millions of people got on with their lives in, peace and, relative happiness. Not a big deal. But, a few people got murdered. No one talks about the people who, went on with their lives with no problem, but the news is going to talk about the people who got murdered.
Yeah.
So by definition, the news is the bad news. So it's kind of rough.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess in that respect, things are always changing, and just to keep your eyes focused on Christ, is maybe a cure to some of that anxiety, and trying to find hope, like they talk about in like he talks about in this poem. When that kind of wants to overwhelm you.
Yeah,
he's not finding any great levels of hope, though. These are kind of minor.
They're minor, but they're tangible,
but
and they're enough.
Yeah, that's true. They're enough. I guess that's the point.
But like I said, like it can be just this tiny little thing that you can grab hold of that's enough to keep you going another day. And if that works, don't knock it,
Yeah.
Well, I think in a way, I think the whole thing's kind of set up that, he's looking for an excuse not to do it. Even this idea that he's going to a ball, the necktie, and I'm going to a ball. And it's like he almost enjoys getting these neighbors all lined up just so he can be like, you know what? Maybe I won't do this. Obviously he's sort of having fun with the poem, but as the speaker, it just seems like there's that kind of fun. And then he is pointing out, these, we'll say, little reasons, although they're not so little whenever you really take them apart, but little reasons for continuing to live, whether it's cooking or reading or a friend calling you that you haven't heard from, whose name is Mr. Gall, or the pink and gray cloud, or or the sword, which can represent either, battles fought for you or a battle you want to take up. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I actually remember, and this was either late high school or early college. I don't remember which, but I remember the conversation I had one time where I was sitting with some people, and one of whom I just recently met, and like I was drinking some hot chocolate, and it wasn't mixed completely, And so like I got down to the bottom of the cup. I'm like, ooh, the thick stuff at the bottom. And this girl I had who I just met recently says like, it doesn't take much to make you happy. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you don't enjoy like tiny little things, you're never gonna find happiness. You gotta take these. I mean, you've got to find these tiny little things, because if you demand some great big gesture, well, life doesn't do that very often. It's not very often you have some great revelation, some kind of epiphany of meaning and contentment. But hey, you get your pay tomorrow. You can go out shop. You can go buy yourself something small. Or look, there's your uncle's sword hanging in the hall. He was a really awesome guy. Didn't he do some cool stuff? Or again, maybe that stupid, annoying woman just won't visit today, and I won't have to put up with her. So take pleasure and take meaning from these tiny little moments. Don't discount them. Don't pretend. Don't think they're nothing. Those things add up if you take them seriously.
Yep.
So I have to say one thing. The last stanza, the envoy. Prince, I can hear the trumpet of Germinal, the tumbrils toiling up the terrible way. Even today, your royal head may fall. And I think up until about a year ago, I don't think I would have really gotten this one. But everyone knows the name now. But it wasn't as known then. About a year ago, I heard about the first arrest and sentencing of Jeffrey Epstein, and I think most people who not going to go into all that. I think most people who are listening to this, contemporarily will have some idea who this is and what he did. Some horrific stuff he was involved in. Just say that. And he had been arrested, some time ago, and he got sentenced to call it you can't even call it a slap on the wrist. It was like a year in jail, or like 6 months, something like that. But he didn't even have to be in jail all day. Like he was released during the day for work, and then he was supposed to and the things he was involved in, that this ended up being his sentencing, and that this was the system. Like learning about that, just really, that this is the system that is governing us, and learning about that and putting that together with other incidents you can think of, which I won't go into because I'll get too angry. But like I have a video. I guess I'll link it in the description. Are we ruled by monsters? Are the people who are in charge, are the people who are running our government, are these genuinely monsters with the things they do and the things they support? And up until I kind of came to that question, I don't think I would have gotten this last stanza. But geez, ever since then, like I'm like, even today your royal head may fall. I'm like, yeah, there's a few highly placed heads that probably should fall, and that I would not that I would consider, a reason not to hang myself today to see that. So that's my that's my darker moment on this one. I'm sorry.
But he is. I mean, that's kind of the funny thing. I mean, especially with that, it's kind of this dark. It's dark. Like he's finding his hope in the fact that someone else may fall. Like that hope we take, I guess, that things will get flipped asunder.
Depending on who it is, it may be that justice will be done.
But it's still a hope for that justice may be done. I mean, honestly, when you're seriously depressed, you're not thinking about, hey, and that's why I'm going to leave the house today. That's not really where you're finding your hope, I don't think.
Yeah, but like I said, that was
it's almost like he's using it as a using it as a way to make a statement. I think the poem's less about depression and suicide than it is, I don't know, about the reasons. I guess what it is more about the reasons for living.
Well, yeah. I mean, because
but it's kind of tongue in cheek even at that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess you could, more literally than usual, you could call this gallows humor.
Right. I think it's that last stanza, though, that I find is sort of a step aside from what the rest of the poem is.
Yeah, well, and
like yet it does come back to death. It comes back to death because he opens it with himself on the gallows, essentially, ready to jump off his wall, gallows. And he's thinking now of somebody else in the gallows. So I guess it makes sense that he would come back around to that point.
So, I think I covered most of what I wanted to say. Elaina, did you have any? Did you have anything you haven't? Any points you haven't hit on this one yet?
No, I think that pretty much said it. It's there's contrasts. You can like as I said at the beginning when I first read it, I took it as like that this person wasn't very serious at all, and I think Travis kind of hit on that too. But there's a lot more depth there and darkness at times as well. So I just thought it was a really great poem.
Okay, Travis, any
last
points for you?
The only thing I didn't mention that I thought was interesting was the first line of the third stanza: "The world will have another washing day." Because, washing day, it's this very mundane. It's this very mundane thing that no one really wants to do, but they have to. But then it also ties into him sort of looking at the following lines that turn into rationalists growing rational, washing out these decadent or pedantic ways.
Well, and the other thing also is that it's also just life's gonna go on. Like the dishes have to be done. I have to wash my clothes. The world's gonna have another washing day. It's gonna go on. Like there's these tiny things that make you happy, and there's these tiny things that you can find hope in. There's these tiny things that can give you some little bit of happiness. And there's also just like you gotta get up tomorrow, and you gotta wash the dishes, and you gotta walk the dog, and it's just life just goes on, and there's value in that too, in the rhythm, in the these ordinary things that just need done over and over again.
Hey, if you wash the dishes, I'll take the dog for a walk. That's a much better job.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight. I hope you liked the poem, and God be with you.